Hey everyone, Andy Hall. This is the After Party After Show Open Room. We got Grant Farmer, Liberal Media, Illuminati member Sammy Jenkins, and of course simply Secular Dave. I hope everyone's doing well this morning. Me, I'm like, I'm did you just say I'm baked?
No, I am, but I said indeed. I told you, you're in my head, Andy.
What are you doing? I'm doing a little baking. Oh, what are you baking? Me.
My brain.
I'm on vacation, so.
Oh, you're on vacation. Congratulations.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that yesterday. Vacay, Sammy.
So yeah. And I sorry I left the stream quite abruptly yesterday.
Sorry.
I have an ill child, yes.
Oh, an ill child.
Always fun. On vacation, of course. It wouldn't be a vacation if the child wasn't sick.
Well, I remember having really young kids, like babies, when they're teething. They always seem to have a fever for no apparent reason.
Yeah. When people say they come up to you with their kids and they put their hand on their forehead and they go, "Does this feel normal to you?" No, touching other people's kids is not normal to me.
No. And it's like I was saying before the insurrection on January 6th. It's like if you're in a civil war, if you got to ask yourself that a bunch of times, more than likely you're in a civil war. And if you're going around asking people, "Does my baby feel hot?" Guess what? More than likely, your baby's got a fever. And you should act.
Yeah, maybe you should ask a medical professional.
Yeah.
Or someone with a thermometer.
Well, my own children gross me out, so you just keep your child, over there.
Well, Sammy, it's interesting you should say
I'll
that.
observe from over here.
Speaking as a misanthrope myself, a part-time misanthrope, you would have thought that having children would have softened my disposition towards other people's children. You would have thought that. Not really. It just has made me actually a harsher critic of other people's parenting style. That's what it has.
I know what you mean, Andy, because when my sister had kids, and she has 4 of them, I mean, it's impossible not to love them to the end of the earth. You just think these are the most wonderful things to ever happen to this family. It's amazing. And then you see somebody else's kid and they go, "Hey, now that you have kids, would you mind babysitting mine?" What are you, high?
You know what I think that we don't talk enough about in the skeptic community, and I was just random thought, is how skepticism helps us modulate our own emotional reactions to things. The more knowledge you have, the more you're able to think out a problem in the moment. I think the less chance you have of making really crazy and risky type of decisions. And I know that has helped me quite a bit with parenting. And yeah, a lot of us like to talk about debunking the Bible or going through logical arguments and dismantling, irrational arguments and dismantling them. There is a real kind of, I think, an emotional intelligence type of betterment or leveling up when you are doing your best at being a skeptic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Dave, girlfriend asks if Dave has kids.
Dave does not have kids.
Dave is smart.
Dave is a really good practicer, but not a professional kid.
Well, I mean, I just as many of you know, right? This is a pretty personal kind of show, and having reconnected or being connected with my birth family on my mom's side, at least, and it just seems like we make kids. That's what we are good at. And I'm just amazed that I'm looking at the data, looking at the plot, at the data plot lines and everything, plot points, and it's like, wow, I'm happy that I've only had two kids, 2 little gene machines.
Now, you had two that you created. Do you have stepchildren of any sort or anything like that, or
No stepchildren. No, no. Which I don't even know how people do that. By the way, it is difficult parenting your own children that you've been in the game with since day one. Suddenly becoming a mom or a dad, a stepmom or dad halfway through a child's development. I don't know how people do that. It sounds like a super heavy lift. And if those people who have done it successfully, job well done, I tip my hat off, you know?
Well,
mentioned
I'll let
in
you know how my stepkid turns out, the poor thing.
Oh, are you a stepdaddy?
Yeah, I've got three that are mine and one step.
Oh, well, you have a good base to grow from, that knowledge and guardianship, and they can probably see your influence on the other children as well, and you have a lot going for you there, right? So
Yeah, it does give me a head start, but it's still a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
And I raise my children with the same parent that I have the stepchild with, and we raise them differently, sad to say. Like, we raise the children we've had together one way, and the stepchild who was already there sort of,
is the stepchild the oldest child, though? Because they might be entitled to a certain amount more freedom from that interaction. If you were involved with somebody and you had the same age or younger age children as stepchildren, you definitely want to be more of an influence in their life.
Absolutely. He has been like, I've been his stepdad since he was 3, so it's pretty much been his entire life as far as he can remember anyway. But it's not so much different, as in we have the same sorts of rules and things like that. Obviously he is entitled to more because he's older, but there was another parent that had to have a say,
right?
And that's where the differences would come in. So makes it really interesting.
That's a nice euphemism.
Yes, you could probably hear the gritted teeth as I said that.
I can hear the grinding.
Followed by that.
Kelvin, how you doing, Kelvin? Glad to see you're here.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Sure. Yep.
Seems like I've jumped into a conversation about child rearing, huh?
Yeah, stepchildren. And I was just mentioning that how skepticism, helps us with our emotional IQ, so to speak, right? In the fact that it helps us kind of pause, reflect on our emotions and our actions. And it's easy, once again, in the skeptic community to focus on Christians and to talk about, debunking or theists in general and debunking their arguments. But, one of the benefits of skepticism is being able to look at yourself and your own reactions as they are occurring. And I don't think there's enough said about that. And then we started talking about stepchildren and children. Yeah.
It is a good point, but I mean, it was obviously really bad here in Australia. I didn't sort of realize till I started seeing ads on TV, like public service announcement type ads, encouraging fathers not to use language like calling their son a girl, or you throw like a girl, and that sort of mentality, because those boys grow up and bash their wives and it's on TV as we speak these days.
And at the bare minimum, They grow up and they hate you, and they don't want to play ball with you at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. But they also turn into you
Yeah.
uh, as
You're
well. So
You're teaching your children as much by your instruction as you are by your example.
I would even say, and there has to be studies about this, that the example is more important than the instruction. Have most of us, I'm sure, have lived, at least in this chat, I mean here, have lived in households that where the theistic parents have said one thing and have done another, and you're like, wow, that's something, and that creates some kind of real disturbance. I think, at least with me, it definitely created a disturbance, and might have been one of the things that helped me start questioning about the faith in general.
definitely.
Yeah, there you go.
Gary Priestley says, "Yep, my kids copy my habits way more than my instructions." Yeah, I could say that. That's what I found too. Yeah, that's why whenever there's a theist that says, "How do you expect to raise moral children?" My response is that why would you outsource your child's moral education? One, and two, they will learn. The horrible and scary fact is that they will learn more from watching you than they will in church or going to Sunday school, and that is by far a more important training than anything else.
And it also depends on the I don't want to say IQ, maybe intelligence or observational capabilities or diagnostic something or other in the brain. But years after we left the house, in our 30s, my sister and I had a conversation about how much we learned by watching our parents and going, oof, I'm never going to do that.
Yeah. I can definitely agree with that.
And it slightly off topic, but it sort of made me think of these shorts that have been popping up on my YouTube feed. I've really got to stop watching Jordan Peterson crap because...
Oh, you said it. You said it.
Oh, sorry. JP. But all these look like middle sort of 30 white built males with beards going on about how they were raised to hold the door open, but that's being misogynistic, and if you're as strong as me, well then you can beat me in an arm wrestle, and all this stuff that you're saying is misogynistic and whatever. I was taught that by my single mother, and after I got over my initial anger, I got sad. I got really, really sad. And then I got angry again.
So that's the cycle, isn't it? That you can be a comedian, Sammy. When I was riffing, I wrote a bunch of satirical posts about Jordan Peterson on the blog, and I was calling his fan base just a band of lost boys, basically. Following Peter Pan. Because that's what they are. These are men who have never been really centered. I think they have, and they're just lost. And Jordan Peterson, what he does is that he takes basic wisdom that you'll find from magazines like Men's Journal, Men's Fitness, and then he just repackages it, and he just adds his own pernicious layer of theism on top of it, and conservative thinking on top of it. And
Now, when you say wisdom from these magazines, you're obviously, the intention of wisdom there would be opinionated hit piece. It
would be okay. So I was about to say idea again, and I'm going to double down on idea right now. These as a person who has thumbed through some men's fitness magazines when I was trying not to be fat. When in my
the wisdom spouted by a magical flying boy that doesn't want to grow up.
They say things
That
like,
sort of wisdom.
yeah, maybe you should get 8 hours of sleep. Maybe you should make, stuff like making your bed. That
Yeah.
comes right from this kind of, magazine. And then, if you say it in the right way and then put in archetypes, the word archetypes and other, 2-syllable, 3-syllable words, then you will convince people who have very limited background in either history, mythology, logic, that you are the bee's knees and you're really smart. And that's and Jordan Peterson is a smart guy, but his brain is just, and heart is just broken, basically. You just got to look at his thought patterns about how he dealt with his own medical issues over the last few years. And it's like that's crazy thinking. That's what that is.
Now, on the making the bed thing, I 100% disagree. I like to get up and make my bed and leave my room tidy.
Mhm.
And when I crawl into bed at night, I like to crawl into a nice, made, neat, tidy bed.
Mhm.
I know people who keep a lot of clothes on their bed, laundry, if you will.
Yep.
They keep a place for the cat to sleep, which I'm not in favor of. And they figure, well, if I only have like a sheet and a comforter, it takes 10 seconds to pull that up over me, and I'm not worried about making my bed every day. But there is a fantastic TED Talk by I can't remember what rank he was, but he was a member of the military, and he spoke to the idea about why it is important to get up every morning and make your bed.
Yes.
And
it was the graduation ceremony, I think.
Was it? Yeah. Okay.
I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah. And I found that very enlightening. I thought that was very valuable. But
Yep.
and it
So
aligned
in a
with
nutshell,
what I was
what's the magic point?
The magic point is that there's a lot of young men out there who feel that they feel like they are adrift, and that a way to help them center themselves is by just doing simple habits like making your bed in the morning and trying to get some kind of control over your life. And for some people, that's probably really helpful. But that doesn't mean God exists. That doesn't mean if you don't vote Republican, then you're going to get gulags.
But
those are just leaps of logic that Peterson makes.
It's a bit of a leap.
It also tips into the responsibility for yourself first idea. That when you get up in the morning, you make your bed. It's not somebody else's job to do it. And you do it right. If somebody sees your bed, they notice that it's made and that you're the type of person who keeps yourself and your things and your environment in a measured, precise sort of taking care of way. So there is a lot going on behind that if you get up and get into the habits of doing that. Yeah. So
I've always really liked keeping a routine because it's like almost ensures, it's almost a guarantee that you will get to those things that you really freaking enjoy, and you won't have to worry about, oh damn it, whenever I get home I have to do this and this. Like it's I feel as though it relieves a stress off of me just by keeping to a routine.
That's a good point, Tobin. And speaking of someone who has probably on the spectrum a bit, a little bit, maybe more than a little bit, I find routine to be soothing, as well as soothing. Yes, it helps. It helps calm the whole thing down. Throughout my day, I know what I'm going to be doing. If it was up to me, I'd probably be eating the same food. My girlfriend's like, yes, Andy, you do like eating the same food over and over again, and probably be wearing the same clothes or very similar clothes over and over again.
But then there's a lot going on in that too. You want to, and as a person who cares about your outward appearance, you want to wear clothes that make you look good. So when you find something or a specific type of clothing that makes you look good, that fits well, that's comfortable, you would buy more of that.
Yeah.
So there's that playing into that as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, sure.
Although you got a little cat hair on you there. So.
Dude, I got some bad hair. I thank my fictitious God that y'all can't see it.
We can't see it. No.
So
I'm going to throw this out there real quick. I found something a long time ago. I was doing car detailing, and this dude gave me the idea of how to get hair out of carpet. And the quickest way to get hair out of stuff is if you got a clean rubber sole of your shoe, and then just take that and rub it down, and it'll make it into a little pile, and you can use a little vacuum and suck it all up. I mean, and it does it very quickly. It'll pull every strand out of carpet. It's amazing.
That is very interesting. And I was really intrigued when you said the word rubber, and I'm going, I wonder where he's going with this.
It's got to be a rubber-soled shoe. And I think it would work with any type of rubber, like, So
what they actually use at the car detailing places is those silicone gloves that are made for petting your cat and removing the hair. That's what they use at the car detail shops.
Yeah, I bet I bet that would work real quick.
It works it's almost instantly. You can clean an entire back seat, like a bench seat, in about 10 seconds with one of those. Yeah, they're great. I know. I'm one of those people now that we have the interwebs. Before I do something, it's like, oh, how do I get this spot out of a carpet? And I'll Google it, and I'll look at like 10 different resources from people who are like, John's tricks for carpet cleaning that has 10 million hits on it, right? And a bunch of thumbs up. And I'll look through stuff like that, or the easiest way to replace a horn on a 74 Cadillac or something. There's just so many resources out there for great little tips and tricks. The problem is when you start Googling stuff like that, all of a sudden your feeds are full of top 10 ways to get mustard out of a skirt. It's like, what?
This is true. And you know what I found interesting too, because, obviously my girlfriend and I, we share the same Wi-Fi, is that when we start Googling stuff from my Google search will appear on her feed.
Yeah.
And so, she might get tickets, for an example, to Colorado, or looking for Colorado stuff. And then I'll be like, why am I seeing stuff for Colorado right now? I mean, I haven't done any searching, but I know she has. And it goes back and forth too. I Google a lot of crazy stuff for the show. And it appears on her feed.
Did you hear about John Mulaney and his sellout string of shows?
Yeah, actually, Steve Hofstetter.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention.
Yeah, over here at the Wilbur, Mulaney, he is. I really like John Mulaney. I've never seen him in person live, but he's coming over to the Wilbur Theater. Steve Hofstetter, he had a few dates over at the Wilbur, but he gave them up for John Mulaney because Mulaney's just selling out 10 nights, Dave, right?
10 nights, yeah.
And that's going to be a record. So
the 10th night fell on the day that Hofstetter's show was.
Right. So Steve Hofstetter.
They moved him.
Yeah. He's over at the Chevalier now. Chevalier over in Medford, where I actually saw Dawkins and Dennett do a live show years ago. Yeah, it's a nice space. It's over by Tufts.
Yeah. It doesn't have the comedy.
It doesn't.
The history to it, but it's a beautiful facility. Yeah,
it is. It's really nice. And so it was interesting when I was watching Dennett and Dawkins. There was some audio issues, so the mic died, and I believe it was Dawkins who was able to be pretty good with the improving. With the whole, the mic dying out and working the crowd. Well, Dennett was a little bit more flat-footed. But well, I don't know if we are going to see John Mulaney. I know the girlfriend was talking about getting tickets, but it would be pretty magical because if anyone knows anything about John Mulaney, he has had a shit time. He's had some addiction issues. He's gone through a divorce, and he talks a lot, from what I understand, about this show, about this tour. He talks a lot about that, gets very personal. And he's like I said, he's always been a guy that I've liked, and I've seen his specials, on Netflix and everything like that. Maybe more than once, to tell you the truth. Yeah.
And Steve Hofstetter specifically said he's known him for a long time.
Yeah.
Hofstetter's never performed at that theater, and it's one of those like bucket list goals.
Right.
But he said because Mulaney had expressed before that he had gone through some terrible, terrible times in his life, and had it not been for performing comedy, he may not have made it through that time. He was having a really rough time in his life.
Yep.
So comedy is huge to him. And apparently the sellout number of shows that Mulaney is selling out, Hofstetter's show night would have been the record for consecutive sellouts at that facility. And he just bowed out and said, I'll go play somewhere else. You do this. And
Right.
what a noble and great gesture to do for another performer within your industry that you have, so much respect for as an entertainer. I think it was a really cool thing for Hoff to do, but it's great that Mulaney is there and doing this now, and then that he's kind of coming out on the other side of all this and doing great comedy.
Well, I've had a couple of comedians on the show, on this channel over the last year or so, and it's like, it is a coping mechanism. If you perform a lot live, then not only is it your livelihood, but it's also a way for you to cope with whatever you're feeling, with whatever feels you're having, performing live and talking and making other people laugh. It's really a way to help cope with your own issues. And, without being able to perform live, a lot of people have just felt, like they, once again, uncentered.
Imagine meeting Lewis Black if he wasn't a comedian.
Oh, yeah. Well, he'd be at the deli, right? You'd be sitting next to him. There'd be a discussion about the soup being too hot or too cold.
Why can't I smoke in here? Why don't they serve alcohol?
Yeah, exactly. I want to say hello to Wes in the chat there. Hope you're doing well, Wes. Yeah. So Caitlin Bailey, who is a comedian, she was on the channel, and she talked about her issues about not performing. But now that everything's opening up again, I think that you'll get healthier comedians, mentally healthier comedians.
Well, I think that, and this isn't a comment on you, Andy. I won't speak for you. You speak for yourself. But I've always felt that comedians have some dark shit going on. You can't be a comedian without that darkness.
Yeah.
You can, but not the sort of comedy I enjoy. So maybe that's more of a comment on myself.
Well,
I should have thought about that before I started talking. Sorry, continue.
It sounded better inside my head.
Jim Gaffigan is a clean comedian, but you start talking with people, and I can't say my sources, about Jim Gaffigan, then you hear things about Gaffigan, right? Bill Cosby, right? Clean comedian, and then you find out, later on about what kind of monster the guy is. Yeah.
And I don't mean dark necessarily in that way. I mean, like, it could be personal shit, hardship, exactly. Whether it be a mental illness, you're on the spectrum, to Bill Cosby. But hey, I'd never thought Bill Cosby was funny, personally.
When I was religious, I thought his Noah bit was funny.
The Noah bit that they stole for the Family Guy.
Right, exactly that. Yeah.
And one of the things that always cracks me up is the stories you hear from comedians about Bob Saget. Like the cleanest guy on TV, right?
Yeah, he's dirty. Dirty man, dirty mouth.
Yeah, if you ever see the show, I don't know if it's a documentary or an entertainment thing, but the one called The Aristocrats.
Oh yeah.
You can just see the absolute joy in his eyes telling that joke.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and once again, you look at, I know I've talked about this before, Jerry Seinfeld, who you don't really think as an angry person, but his last special, he just basically comedically comedically yells at the crowd for an hour in that kind of stage, faux yell that he does. Yeah, that guy's angry.
Yeah. And the Lewis Black answering the emails and the
that's funny.
tweets and emails. Oh, that is just comedy gold. I mean, when people are just going to send you that stuff.
Yeah. Lewis Black has a podcast, and I forget the name. I'm probably just the Lewis Black podcast. And if you're not, it's fun. It's fun to listen to. I'll listen to it occasionally. Yeah.
Now that I think about Seinfeld, like the actual show, how he would often have the little bits of his stand-up in between.
Yeah.
Even then, he was quite angry. Probably more frustrated than angry, but he is where I got my stereotypical picture of a New Yorker.
Yeah.
I thought all New Yorkers just walked around that angry.
I've only been to Florida, but going to Florida, there was a lot of New Yorkers there, and they talk extremely loud, and they are a lot more vulgar. Like I'm a little more reserved, with the interactions, but they are definitely very bold, very bold.
I was really pleasantly surprised when I went to New York, how similar it was to Vancouver and San Francisco. The people there were great. If somebody saw you on the street and you were looking around, they were like, "Do you need directions? Do you know where you're at, where you're headed?" And "Oh yeah, I'm looking for this place. Oh, it's just up here. I'm going by there. Come with me." And
I thought everyone was walking around going, "Don't worry about it." Hey, what are you talking about?
You need to go see Luigi. Yeah.
Do I need to call my boys?
Yeah.
Well,
it's wild how the different regions also have these special attitudes or personalities that we kind of, I don't know. I just think that's kind of interesting. I wonder if it'll ever integrate into a bigger, where you expect to see that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was talking with, I think his name is Jason Whitehead. He's a comedian. He was on Traveling with the Australian comedian or an Australian comedian, Jim Jeffries. And and so Jason Whitehead, we were hanging out drinking in Cambridge. This is years ago after a show. And we were talking about something about Boston. It's like, yeah, well, it's another fucking different, it's a different world when you go over that river from Cambridge, Somerville into Boston. He just laughs and he goes, "That is so."
JJ or Jason Whitehead lives in California now, but he was apparently a Canadian.
Yes, I believe he was from Nova Scotia, as I recall. I was drunk when we have it. So he was on the podcast too, our old podcast, Naked Diner, and I was fucking trashed. Well, there was a while that I got really drunk while doing podcast interviews, and I should apologize to anyone who was on any of those shows, really. But I believe he got his start. He was working on a cruise line, I think.
Yeah,
and he discovered he was funny, and just started hitting the circuit. And went up to Montreal, of course, for the comedy festival there, and went over to Edinburgh, and eventually bumped into Jim Jeffries, and they got along together.
Yeah, I have a buddy who worked on the cruise ships, and the pay wasn't great, but you don't need to rent anywhere. If you have a parent's basement to store your stuff in, just for anyone who's 20 years old and looking for a great job, when the cruise lines get back up and going, I mean, outside of the health hazards, which hopefully will go away, it is an amazing experience for someone at that time of their life. And you can save up quite a bit of money because everything you eat, all the activities you do, the place you stay is all paid for by the cruise lines.
Right. Just want to say hello to Geo Sam in the chat. Hello, Geo. Yeah, we were talking about New York, about how weird local cultures are in a lot of ways. I was just talking about the difference between Boston and Cambridge, for an example, and then Tobin was talking about the difference between like going just to Florida from Texas and seeing New Yorkers there. Yeah, and then
I mean, I don't mean any offense to them. I enjoyed the time that I got to interact with them. I just noticed how that there's a difference in personalities, like that carries or I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself right.
No, but there is a measurable difference between those people. Yeah.
So I've learned to just be quiet. In fact, if you see me in person around people I don't know, I am quite quiet for trying to read the room, right? Trying to understand where people are, to see what's safe to say and what's not safe to say. And I'm quiet quite a bit.
Andy, I'm the exact opposite of that.
Oh, really?
I'm the guy that people walk around the party a half an hour later going, have you met that Dave guy?
I think we could do a great vaudeville show, Dave. What's up, Paul?
Hey, Paul.
You're doing well.
What's up, Paul? Yeah, I'm somewhat more introverted too myself. Like in a party atmosphere, I do talk. I will get into circles and stuff like that. But I do have my times where I just, absorb it, take it in.
Yeah.
People watching is fun. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, back to comedians, there's typically, the people who are looking for attention, right? The class clowns in high school. And then there are people who are the observers. And I've always been more the observer and just checking people out, people watching. Hey, Crypt Ameria.
Hey.
I actually said that correctly.
Yeah, you didn't say America.
I didn't say America. No. So I think I said that correctly. Working on my words. Working on my words.
You're a good languager.
I'm very good. I'm very good. And half the reason why I do this is because I had that speech difficulty, that speech impediment when I was younger. And so I think the more I talk, the more empowered I feel. That's how it is.
Well, maybe that also might have played into your natural tendency to be an introvert in those sort of situations if you were a little self-conscious about the way you were interacting with people.
Indeed. Is there someone making fun of Missouri? We don't have to make fun of Missouri. It's just I have a buddy who lives, I think, in Kansas City, Missouri.
I heard a great comedy piece on Missouri, how when they originally wrote it down, they misspelled it. And they were just, like, no, that's how it's supposed to be spelled. We spelled it right. It's fine. Leave it alone.
Right. Well, that's where the Garden of Eden is supposed to be, right? The Mormons believe the Garden of Eden is somewhere in Missouri, as I recall. So that's something to feel proud about right there.
Yeah.
The Garden of Eden is in a state that is very close. It sounds very similar to misery. Like that's kind of strange, isn't it?
That should be that should somehow be the state's motto, Tobin, right there. Right. Something about misery in Missouri.
Isn't misery in North Dakota?
Good point.
Oh, jeez.
So, I had to run away when you were talking about what you like at parties.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was trying to think what I'm like at parties. And I realized that I'm the kind of person that people see and think, oh, he looks interesting. Or, girls probably think, oh, he looks all right. And they come up. And it's like, I can talk about religion, Bible historicity, disability support work. What kind of music do you like? Black metal and classical.
I really like the Vivaldi.
Yeah.
So yeah,
yeah. This is
Right.
why I think this channel is so popular, is because I'm so accessible to everyday people.
You know, I have no idea what it is, but it astonishes me how many times in my life I've been at a party or a concert or an amusement park or a stadium or an event, and a complete stranger walks up to me and says, "Hey, do you have any weed?"
No.
Like, me of all people?
People would think that you'd be more of a narc, to tell you the
I
truth.
would think you would be the narc. Yeah.
It's incredible how many times that's happened.
Wow. You got the aura, man. You got the aura.
It used to be a thing you could do, but now it's like,
Mm.
do not try to do that shit anymore. But yeah, I used to be one of those kids. I probably would have asked you for weed, Dave.
Well, if you need any.
I just want
Legal,
to
what can I say, right?
bounce off what Sammy was saying, is that I would talk about those things too, Sammy, but after maybe a pint or two, I'd be also waxing philosophic about why you're fucking wrong about whatever you're talking about.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of why I'm wrong, would you like to discuss the monetization structure of the internet?
Let me just do that for 1 second. I just want to touch on Geo Sam. Sam, I'm so sorry to hear that. Arizona.
Oh.
I've only been out to Arizona a couple of times. My buddy Jack Materko lives out in Arizona. Your AC unit broke yesterday. Dude, I'm sorry to hear that. That blows. Yeah.
Because it gets so warm down here in the south, in this part of the region, it will be miserable to try to sleep. You just toss and turn. It sucks if you do not have the air conditioner.
Andy likes to talk about Nazi.
It was the hottest day of the year yesterday here, and they're saying it's going to be, well, it's pretty cloudy right now, but they're saying it's going to be hot the rest of this week. So
if you're just coming into the show for the first time, when the girlfriend says Andy likes to talk about Nazis when he's drunk, about the evilness of Nazis, Donald Trump. I just want to just point that out right there. But Dave,
you are a history buff, though.
I am a history buff. Yeah. Actually, what's frustrating is when I've gone on streams when we talk about World War II history, when we talk about World War II, and they want to talk about totally unrelated things that I'm good at. Well, I mean, not that I'm not good at, but things that I'm not interested in, because World War II is such a big topic. It's like talking about the machines, the tanks, the weapons, and everything. It's like, can't we just talk about the personalities and the strategies and what went wrong? But that's just me. That is me completely off on a tangent. Well, yeah. It's heat. I'm a cold weather person myself, so I feel it.
Yeah. I think it's my big pause. This is probably my own woo that I've made up, but I do have very large pores, and I also suffer from heat stroke very, very easily. So
wow.
I've made that correlation a causation, and I believe my big pores mean I excrete. Do we excrete? No, we evaporate.
Are you talking about a good schwitz there, a good sweating?
Yeah, we schwitz. I believe I schwitz more than the average person.
I dislike.
I'm not a sweaty person per se.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I believe the evaporation is quite instant.
Sure.
I put a lot of thought into this, Andy.
That's good. I have discovered that I don't like. I don't like sweating myself. I'm an anti-sweater, but it does happen occasionally. I can't help it, right?
Well, heat stroke. And apparently it's I'm wrong when I say that. It's heat exhaustion that I suffer from. Heat stroke is worse.
Yeah. I've had stroke twice in my life, and they were one. I had seizures when I was a baby in church because of heat stroke, and the other was when I was when I was cooking as a short order cook, and I was vomiting, and I slept for about 3 days after that. but that's a whole nother story. Heat stroke sucks, everyone. And you should go see a doctor if you actually have heat stroke.
So maybe I have had heat stroke then, because, yeah, I've had nights where I've literally had to spend the night in the shower just vomiting the entire night. I couldn't keep drugs down that were meant to stop you vomiting.
Sure.
And not sick, just heat.
Yeah.
The worst I've ever done with heat, my buddy and I used to ride mountain bikes everywhere. And we were riding up one of the larger mountains in the area. It's about a 2.5 hour ride up. So we're on mountain bikes with good gearing, good tires, front suspension, the whole deal. We're riding up this hill, and I came to with him standing over me, pouring water on my head. Wow. Because I had overheated and literally just flopped over on my side.
Dude, blacking out due to the heat. That is serious. Yeah.
Yeah.
Once again, the question arises, how are you still alive, Dave?
See, with me, it's just the vomiting. Yeah. So much so, I've developed a phobia of vomiting. And for someone who vomits an awful lot, that's a terrible thing to have.
Yeah, if it makes you feel any better, I haven't vomited for a while, and for a while and I've been drinking at about the same clip. I just want to say this right now. And when I was younger, like in my 30s, it was far easier for me I didn't want this to happen, of course, but while drinking, there would be vomiting. And that hasn't happened for quite a long time. So maybe your body will change over time, and maybe you won't be vomiting as much. I mean, I hope.
I remember when people used to say, "Oh, I haven't vomited in like 6 or 7 years. I haven't vomited in 10 years. And I looked at them like, "Wow, you don't drink enough."
Quitter.
Right? It's one of the big reasons why I don't drink alcohol.
Yeah,
because I can't stand.
Yeah.
Well, I found the older I get, the less I want to mix drinks. So, like, if you start off with rum and then you get into some beer, and then somebody offers, "Oh, I make a great margarita here, and then we'll do tequila shots, and then we've got some scotch over here if you want a little sip of that." And
that's a recipe. That's a recipe for disaster. Hey, what's up, God's Granny? Glad to see that you're here.
Hey.
See, when I was growing up, it was more like, we've got a $4 bottle of Passion Pop, and I've got a $3 bottle of Mandarin Port, and I've got a $15 bottle of cheap vodka. We'll mix all that up.
What did they call that? They used to take like a cooler and cut up a whole bunch of fruit in it, and just everyone who showed up poured whatever booze they brought into it, and made like a bathtub full of beverage.
Is it like sangria? Some kind of sangria?
I think they called it like Yucca Flux or something like that.
Yucca Flux.
Yeah,
that's the noise
that
you make.
Sound like it's very constructive.
The next morning.
It was something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, cryptomeria. I was like that before church. I was so anxious I didn't eat or even water made me sick. That's interesting. I was a big crier in church, to tell you the truth. I was a big crier in church. Just caught up with the spirit, everyone. Yeah, crazy.
Yes. Actually, cryptomeria, that's probably where I developed my anxiety. Not church itself, but the witnessing.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Knocking on people's fucking doors, man. Trying to, ram shit down their throat that you didn't believe in yourself.
Completely. And public speaking is supposedly one of the biggest fears a person can have, but having to go out as a kid and do that.
It's nerve-wracking. And then they want to throw like a 3-layered suit on you and make you walk around out in the freaking heat like it's 80, 90, 100 maybe. I mean, I think my parents were probably a little more conscious of it being that freaking hot, and they wouldn't have done that to me. But still, I do remember times it being really freaking hot and just wanting to peel everything off of me. And I'm having to freaking go knock on doors and shit.
I would like to interject here because my experience at church and that of many, I would say nearly all, if not all, of the people in my church has been completely the opposite of that. When I was growing up in the church, the people there had known my family since before I was born. I grew up with all the kids that were there. When I had an opportunity to speak, it was in a group of friends that I was comfortable with. So I learned to speak in public and to sing in public and to do the performances they do, like the Christmas plays and that sort of thing, to do karaoke, to do all that stuff. I was 100% comfortable with doing that with them. And it made me way more comfortable doing it in front of strangers.
Interesting.
See, and Taban, you'll probably remember this, we just didn't have a choice. We had to do public speaking in the church and do like Bible readings and give little talks and things that we had to write ourselves and then give to the whole congregation and then be marked on. A dude would sit there and like rate you on how you went on different aspects.
Rate with a T.
Yeah, like you got, G for good and literally like pass, fail. You had to work on it again, so on. From basically when you could read.
Yeah, they had a little back room that they would do that for the kids, and then once you got to where you could give a speech, well, they would put you up on the front and you would speak to the congregation.
Yeah. So
at least that's how it was for us.
And our parents, because I did really well in public speaking at school. I did debating and all that sort of stuff, and yes, it paid off. So, they all saw that as just another positive.
It's interesting to point out, the implicit message here is that churches are there to increase your anxiety and to release your anxiety. It is like a marketing campaign. You just walk into the Catholic Church and you see Christ on the cross. That creates anxiety.
So it'd be kind of like a doctor who is like, come in here and let me hit you with the hammer, and then you can walk over here and let me see you and treat you. Yeah.
It's like the idea of that meme, right? You've heard it a million times, probably, if you've been on the internet. Sin is a fake disease that church is there to cure. And it is, they create anxiety in you through all these horrible stories to make you feel like you're a bad person. And then they say, look, we have the solution. So it's a creation of anxiety. And then it is the catharsis. It is the expression of your solution.
A medical term, like a Munchausen's type?
There's something
keep you sick to make you well.
Munchausen by faith, maybe. There has to be a special Latin for that, right? Because you have Munchausen syndrome, where you believe you fabricate these diseases, and then Munchausen by proxy, where a parent will say that their child has all these made up diseases. And then I think it's an interesting point, Sammy, that it's Munchausen.
God is the ultimate, because he tells us we have all this sin that only he can cure, but it's a sin that he created.
Yeah.
Boom. Mic drop.
Just like that.
It's like they're handing you a bucket of sin at the door and you go dump it in the fountain inside the church. There you go. Here's your sin.
Right.
And while you're there, put some money in that basket over there.
If you put enough money, then the fountain will cure your sin.
Right. Imaginary God. Sin is an imaginary disease meant to sell you an imaginary cure.
Yeah, I have had that experience with I've told you guys before, I interact with religious people in as much a street epistemology way as possible. And whenever they bring up sin, I tell them I don't believe in sin. Right?
Yeah,
and conceptually, most of them, it's a moment where they stutter or they pause and they're like, wait, what do you mean you don't believe in sin? Like, they've just never even thought that's an option.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah. Well, it's the same look that you get. Go ahead, Sam.
Or they go that step further and say, oh, so that means you approve of murder and rape. No, that's not what I said. I said I don't believe in sin. I can still believe things are wrong.
Right.
yeah. It has nothing to do with morals.
Sin is a transgression against a God. If you don't believe in a God, then how can you believe a transgression against him?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Did you see what Blazing wrote in there?
What did Blazing say? Oh, can a hypochondriac think they have Munchausen? I don't. The thing is about personality disorders, right? And personality disorders, there's two types of, broadly speaking, two types of mental illnesses. One of them is egosyntonic, and there's ego dystonic. Ego dystonic is when something happens to you. Like, I feel this anxiety attack happening to me. It's like something from the outside affecting you. A personality disorder is somewhat like is egosyntonic, where you see that as who you are in the world. So I think people who have Munchausen syndrome, it's other people's fault, or it's who they are. So I don't think so, but that's just a guess off the top of my head.
Yeah, well, like there's a sort of a narcissism part to it.
Yeah, indeed. And narcissism, if you know, like clinical definition of narcissism, that's definitely an egosyntonic thing. This is people who, that's just part of their personality, and they see whatever issues that arise from it being the problem of people around them or situations around them.
And good for you, Cryptomeria.
Yeah, effing yes. I was invited to a women's retreat. I told one of the heads of the ministry, I'm not a woman like them, and that I'm not saying I am broken. Yeah. If sin can be inherited, why not salvation? Right? Doesn't that seem to be a deal that should be made? But that would ruin the whole.
That kind of why Christ died, though?
Dude.
No,
There was yes. Just if he died to save us from the sin, doesn't that mean it should be inheritable like sin? If salvation should be inheritable like sin.
One of my favorite questions to ask anyone in the ministry is, when they as soon as they open the door to, you have to beg for forgiveness and you have to align yourself with Jesus, and the only way is, mine is the truth, the way, and the light. The only way to heaven is through me. And you say to them, so do you know anyone who went to hell? Well, no.
Close.
Nobody at all. You've never known like a murderer, a really bad person, somebody who cheated on their wife, an adulterer, a rapist. You've never known anyone who didn't ask for forgiveness for their sins and went to hell. And they're like, oh, look at the time. I got to go.
All right. I'm going to have to close down shop in about 2 minutes. Any last thoughts, everyone? Anyone in the chat or panel?
Can I just say, don't forget to like, share, tell all your friends what a wonderful show this is and the preceding show. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. Andy puts in a lot of hard work and puts a great program for us together 5 days a week at 6 a.m. Eastern.
Thank you, Dave. Anyone else?
Rock and roll, y'all.
Rock and
Thanks
roll.
for doing the show, Andy. Thanks for doing the show.
Thanks. Yeah, dude. I'm sorry.
Sorry, giving up pants salvation? Cryptomeria? What?
Giving up pants. Indeed.
Why is giving up pants salvation?
I'm sure there's some sect.
Oh, I think that's a male-female thing, right? Like for the church, like wear skirts and be pretty, and
I'm sure that there is some compound out there where there is a man telling people you've got to give up pants for salvation, but only he can wear the pants. That's
magic pants.
And once again, from the Internationale, there are no supreme saviors, neither God nor Caesar nor tribune, everyone. And on that, from the left, from the progressive atheist left, thank you for watching. Take care, everyone.
Hey,